In 1940, Electro was joined by his faithful dog Sparko. And the machines continued to wow audiences.
They were a lot of fun, and they completely captured the imagination of everyone who saw them. You have to remember, we didn't have Star Wars and Star Trek and Forbidden Planet and all that back then in the 30s and 40s. I mean, people were just, wow. And I think it helped promote the image of science fiction and robots and the future very effectively.
The friendly demeanor of Electro and Sparko helped popularize a new positive vision of robots. Robots that remained under human control. This concept was cemented into our culture by the revolutionary writings of Isaac Asimov.
I wrote a series of robot stories in which robots were looked upon purely mechanically, and in which I had the, I imagine, novel notion that robots, like other machines, would be built with safeguards. I mean, nobody would manufacture a knife without a handle to hold it by. So I invented the 3 laws of robotics, which I used in my robot stories. They are: 1, a robot may not harm a human being, or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. 2, a robot must obey orders given it by a human being, except where that would conflict with the first law. 3, a robot must protect its own existence, except where that would conflict with the first and second laws.
He decided that robots should be benevolent, not malevolent. He did with his stories, he put the robots into dilemma situations where it knew it couldn't let the person get hurt, and it knew that it couldn't let this guy say to hurt him, and the dilemmas were resolved always with the robot always being subservient to man.
Asimov's machines spawned new robots in science fiction writing and films of the early 1950s.
Welcome to Altair 4, gentlemen.
This is no offense, but you are a robot, aren't you?
That is correct, sir. For your convenience, I am monitored to respond to the name Robbie.
You could really see the 3 laws of robotics demonstrated in Forbidden Planet, and there's this one scene in particular where Morbius tells Robbie to fire a weapon at the commander, and Robbie just freezes, and he has this complete meltdown.
You see, he's helpless, locked in a sub-electronic dilemma between my direct orders and his basic inhibitions against harming rational beings. Cancelled.
Forbidden Planet made Robbie the Robot a movie star, and he influenced a generation of future robot makers, even though he was really only a prop built for the film.
Robbie is just absolutely revolutionary in his design. First of all, he cost the MGM prop shop over $125,000 back in 1955 when they were first putting him back together, which is just unheard of. It's like spending $1 million on a prop today. You just don't see that kind of care and design. Functionally, Robbie has all these gadgets in his head, and like, what are those things? Well, why are they there? But you have that vertical and horizontal scanner. That's so he can look around. I mean, all these things were based in science. He had those gyroscopes, those 3 spinning things at the top of his head to keep him balanced. He had these computer relays in his head. You would hear Robbie think.
Well, you low-living contraption, I ought to take a can opener to you.
Quiet, please. I am analyzing.
Robbie was the first robot of the modern age to get people thinking that, well, maybe robots and artificial intelligence can happen, and it is in our future. And I think it got a lot of little impressionable kids thinking in that direction, who are now, designing the computers and making real robots.
Asimov and Robbie inspired inventors who would soon merge fantasy and reality to create more than elaborate automatons. They would build first real working robots. If the industrial robot has a family tree, its roots are firmly planted with this man. George Devol is known as the grandfather of robotics. It was his patent, filed in 1954, that was the blueprint for the machine that would revolutionize industry.
This is the kind of a job that a man normally doesn't like to do. It's really terribly hot, those forging operations.
Duvall, a prolific inventor, also responsible for the barcode and the electric door, teamed with engineer Joe Engelberger, now known as the father of robotics. Joe says it all began at a cocktail party.
We got talking in a corner, and I think we also got into our cups. And, talking about it, I said, gee, that sounds like a very good idea. I think the patent makes sense to me. What are you doing with it? And he said, well, no one's paying any attention to me. So I said, let me have a crack at it. Let me see if I can't find the financing. And in the cold gray dawn with a hangover, it still looked like a pretty good idea.
Both men believed in the idea, but it proved difficult to convince companies to fund their project.
When we built the first industrial robot, to get financing, I visited 46 different companies before I could find someone who'd believe it was even possible to do such a thing.
It took years of development and fundraising, but George Duvall's blueprint lurched to robotic life in 1961. The new company was called Unimation. The robot was named Unimate.
Automation's newest contribution to man. This jack-of-all-trades robot is called Unimate, and it handles dull, difficult, or dangerous jobs with equal aplomb.
That same year, General Motors bought the first Unimate and put it in a New Jersey plant to take red-hot parts from a die-casting machine. Automation was not new to the automobile industry, but this was something different. The Unimate created the definition of an industrial robot.
An industrial robot is something that has at least 3 degrees of freedom, which means 3 axes that can move independently. It has to be reprogrammable, and it has to be able to perform different tasks. And that's the universally agreed definition today.
The original Unimate had an awful lot of the major qualities that all industrial robots have today. It had to have a memory. It had to remember up to 100 different steps. There's 100 different things in a row it could do.
He has muscle, can pick up 75 pounds, and can stand extreme heat, cold, noxious odors, toxic gases, and radiation. He never complains, asks for a promotion, or demands a pay raise. He doesn't break, bend, or burn, and should make some other Unimate a perfect husband. Or maybe wife?
It was a primitive machine weighing 2,000 pounds, powered by hydraulics, with memory stored on a clunky magnetic drum. Its nervous system was operated by feedback or servo mechanisms, which measure where the robot is in space. When it reaches its pre-programmed point, it then performs its next maneuver. Another innovation was the end effector, the robot's hand. This is the part of the machine that interfaces with its surroundings. Each is designed to do a specific job, and it allowed robots to weld, drill, spray, and grip.
The end effector is another word for tooling. Now, the tooling can get pretty sophisticated because some of the tooling has sensors built into the clamp, let's say, that will allow it to exert just so much pressure on something.
However, aside from General Motors, buyers for the new robots were scarce.
If you don't understand something, and to try to get a normal businessman to understand a robot, he thought you're talking about science fiction or something like that.
Management was skeptical, workers fearful. Corporate executives believed the robots wouldn't work. Employees feared they would work too well and replace them. But robots mostly did the jobs people didn't want to do. And in fact, robots created jobs. Humans had to design, build, operate, and repair them.
So they're able to use the kind of brain power that they have. Like one of the people that went to one of our classes learning how to program robots came out of it and said, gee, now I can finally use my brains for this company I've been working for 20 years instead of just my muscles.
By the mid-60s, even labor unions endorsed robots, recognizing the inevitable